Welcome to supervisory training for the signs and symptoms of substance abuse. I am very proud to add this training to our growing list of products and services, demonstrating our ongoing commitment to provide innovative services to meet the needs of our customers. This training, along with the supervisory training booklet, will teach you how to detect the signs and symptoms of substance abuse. What documentation is required for reasonable suspicion testing? How to approach the individual to initiate discussion about potential substance abuse. And finally, the referral process for an individual to provide a drug and alcohol test based on reasonable suspicion. This training also contains demonstrations of potential real-life situations to guide you through the process of handling reasonable suspicion testing incidents in your workplace or at your job site. The supervisory training booklet provides you with additional information to assist you in the process for reasonable suspicion testing. Additionally, you will be given a short quiz at the conclusion of this video to reinforce your understanding of what has been presented in this training. So let's get started.
Your employees are your most valuable assets. The health and well-being of each team member is essential to ensure the success and overall safety of your business. As a supervisor, you have a responsibility and commitment to provide the safest working environment possible. It is up to you to be constantly vigilant of any emotional or physical changes that may occur in your employees. As part of that ongoing commitment, we present this training to assist you in your daily efforts to recognize, document, and confront an employee that may be exhibiting symptoms of a potential drug and/or alcohol problem. It is recognized that construction is an inherently dangerous profession, and even if one employee operates in a hazardous manner, that behavior can affect everyone from coworkers to management to the well-being of the company itself. That's why reasonable suspicion testing is so important and should be an integral part of your safety program. It's obvious that construction work and drugs are a volatile mix, but also consider the repercussions of such abuse on the employee, the co-workers, the company, and even the workers' union, such as the physical pain and suffering the employee will experience due to an injury or accident that can occur on the job or at home, the ongoing debilitating effects of abusing drugs and/or alcohol, the collapse of the employee's personal relationships, the financial loss to the employee and the individual's family, the lost productivity and the associated cost to replace the employee, the possible increase in workers' comp insurance, which directly impacts the bottom line of the company, the adverse impact on the reputation of the union in providing qualified workers. So as you can see, the choices made by a single employee can create a chain reaction that affects the lives of so many others and directly affects the financial position of the company and the reputation of the unions. The goal of this training is to heighten your awareness of drug and alcohol abuse on the job site. We will guide you through the process of detecting the signs and symptoms of substance abuse, which will ultimately lead you to testing for reasonable suspicion. What is reasonable suspicion? Simply put, reasonable suspicion occurs when an employee is suspected of alcohol and/or drug use because that employee's actions, appearance, or conduct constitutes an obvious change in the person's appearance and/or behavior. As a supervisor, you should have a working knowledge of this process. You should be able to identify the signs and symptoms of employee drug and alcohol abuse. You should know how to document what you observed, and you should know how to responsibly manage the difficult challenge of meeting with the employee in question. Your company should already have a drug and alcohol policy in place and may have certain other resources available to you, such as an employee assistance program and a human resources department. If the employee is a union member, employee assistance is probably available through the Union Health and Welfare Fund. Make sure you become familiar with all of the resources available to you regarding reasonable suspicion testing. Let's take a look at the major components of the signs and symptoms for reasonable suspicion testing. In order to effectively refer an employee for reasonable suspicion testing, you first have to objectively observe the employee's actions, appearance, and conduct. For full-time employees, including management, supervisors, and office staff, you probably have observed them for some time, gotten to know them on a regular basis. You know how they normally conduct themselves, how they dress, their habits, and their personality and moods. This familiarity will make any changes in their normal appearance and behavior become much more obvious to you. Detecting or observing changes in workers is not as obvious and thus more difficult when the individual is on the job site for a short period of time, 1 or more days. Or as a supervisor, you are on a new project and you are not familiar with the employees on the job site. To assist you, let's discuss observation. Observation is the most important aspect of testing for reasonable suspicion. You must be objective in your observations. Hearsay evidence is not considered objective observation. You must personally observe the actions, appearance, and conduct of the employee. Observable behaviors include speech, emotional and physical changes. Examples of speech include thick or slurred speech, speaking rapidly or excessively, slowly or even incoherently. Observable actions may also include a pattern of tardiness or absenteeism on the job. Emotional indicators of an individual who may be under the influence of drugs or alcohol usually consist of changes in temperament, such as anxiety and irritability, depression and moodiness, withdrawal, or even feelings of alienation. Physical indicators relate to changes in a person's bodily appearance. Pupils may be dilated or eyes may be red or watery. A lack of appetite may result in significant weight loss. Rapid breathing, cold sweats, and tremors are other key factors to look for, as well as changes in the employee's personal hygiene. Much more obvious would be the odor of marijuana on clothes and hair, and the smell of alcohol on the breath. It could be as obvious as smelling the odor of marijuana in a confined space. In other cases, a person's balance could be an indicator. Unsteadiness, swaying, or even falling. Difficulty in walking would include stumbling or staggering and even grasping for support. Whatever the case, it is imperative that you are able to document your observations of the person's unusual behavior or appearance. You now have learned how to objectively observe the employee's actions, appearance, and conduct. These indicators, combined with your previous training in substance abuse issues, now confirm your suspicions the employee may be under the influence of drugs or alcohol. The next step is documentation of your objective observations. It is up to you to document in a timely manner exactly what you observed. Forms such as those available from CDS include the name of the employee, date and time of observation, the location where the employee was observed, and a listing of criteria and indicators relating to substance abuse. We cannot stress enough the importance of documentation. Well-documented records provide the employer with a written record of ongoing patterns of improper behavior by the employee and helps protect the company in the event of future litigation. Remember, you have to be precise in describing exactly what you observed. The next step is always the most difficult for a supervisor, when you have to deal with the employee face to face. First, make sure you have a witness present and a private, confidential setting to conduct a referral meeting. It should be pointed out that this witness is not required for federally mandated testing such as DOT and may not be required under your specific substance abuse testing policy. However, for policies administered by CDS, a witness is required to ensure that you are not intentionally singling out the individual because of personal differences or accused of such, but also to protect you and the company against any accusations of bias or prejudice and potential litigation. During this referral process, the worker has the right to request that their job steward also be present. Now, you need to explain why you're referring the employee for reasonable suspicion testing. You should be prepared for everything from denial and aggressive behavior to the silent treatment, all common reactions associated with intervention. Just stick to the facts and always be direct. After all, you've got plenty of documentation to support you. Don't be accusatory or judgmental and never let emotions get in the way. Be professional. Also, make sure you listen to what the employee has to say and be reassuring without being enabling. Remember, you are talking to a valued asset of your company, your employee. who might now be dealing with a substance addiction. If the employee refuses to take the test, calmly explain that a refusal is the same as testing positive and subject to the same consequences as a positive test result as identified in the company's substance abuse policy. And when all is said and done, it still comes down to the bottom line. Drug usage is not only against company policy, it's against the law. Zero tolerance, period. As you encourage the employee to provide a drug and alcohol test, inform the individual of what the testing entails and when it will be administered. Tell the individual that you'll have to discreetly remove them from the job until the company is notified of the test results and that someone will provide transportation to and from a Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Administration certified collection facility. SAMHSA establishes the rules and regulations for federally mandated testing such as DOT. Explain to the employee that if the test results are confirmed as positive, the individual must complete a drug and alcohol assessment and be released to return to work by an Employee Assistance Program counselor. The employee must also provide a negative drug and alcohol test result before being allowed to actually return to work. If the employee breaks down emotionally at this point, you have the perfect opportunity as a supervisor to offer that person the help they so greatly and deservedly need by referring the individual to the appropriate Employee Assistance Program. You cannot perform any testing yourself. Instead, testing must be performed at an approved collection facility immediately after referral. A SAMHSA certified collection specialist and breath alcohol technician will perform the necessary drug and alcohol specimen collection. They will ensure that the specimen is sent to a SAMHSA certified laboratory for analysis to determine if an illegal controlled substance exists at or above the levels for the drug categories identified in the company's substance abuse policy. It must be reiterated that you cannot refer an individual for reasonable suspicion testing based on someone else's observations or suspicions. As a supervisor, you must have the documented proof of exactly what type of behavior you observed and when. Let's take a look now at some examples of how to recognize the indicators that lead to reasonable suspicion testing. In our first example, our supervisor Tony is somewhat acquainted with the employee Bob and is aware of his recent increased absences from work. A chance meeting on the job site provides the perfect opportunity for the supervisor to address this issue with Bob. Besides that, our supervisor now finds himself in an ideal situation that warrants sending Bob for reasonable suspicion testing. The indicators are easily visible. The employee is agitated and not thinking clearly. His speech is confused and incoherent. There is a definite odor of alcohol present.
Hey, Bob. I didn't know you were back at work today.
Well, this ain't no good piece of crap.
Hey, whoa. What's the problem?
What?
What's the problem?
Oh, this damn thing's acting up. Worse than my old lady. There's some more crap to add to my happy Monday along with this lousy headache.
Well, hang on, let's take a look. Hey, you know, Bob, today's Tuesday, not Monday.
Yeah.
You know, kicking the Bobcat's really not a good idea. All you're gonna get's a broken foot.
So what? The way my life is going, who cares?
Is that alcohol that's smelling your breath? Have you been drinking?
Hell no, I would never drink on the job.
What's this? It smells like alcohol. Is this your cup?
It's not mine. Somebody else must have left it there. Get off my case. I'm no alcoholic.
Hey, relax. I never said you were, but I think we ought to go inside and talk about this.
What for?
Well, because you're my employee and I care about you and your safety. And besides, this is a private matter, so why don't we go in my office and discuss this? You can have your union rep there if you like.
Rep, yeah. Nah, this is my business.
Hey, Jim. Tony. Meet me in my office, okay?
You don't understand. The old lady wants full custody. And now her attorney says he's gonna garnish my wages. Well, meanwhile, she's living with her new boyfriend in my house while I'm out busting my ass to pay for it. And on top of all that, you accuse me of drinking on the job?
Bob, I'm not accusing you of anything, but I have some pretty good reasons to refer you to reasonable suspicion testing.
Oh, come on, don't do this to me. I got enough problems.
I don't have a choice. I smell alcohol on your breath and in the cup in your work area. Now, company policy states that I have to remove you from the job immediately and send you for reasonable suspicion testing. Look, Bob, I don't know you that well, but I do know a lot of guys out here who are dads who've gone through custody battles just like the one you're going through right now. I'm sorry, I just don't have a choice.
So, what happens if it shows I have been drinking?
Well, the company substance abuse policy states that I have to keep you off the job, send you to our employee assistance program to talk to a counselor. Then it's up to them to decide if and when you're fit to return to duty. Now, before you're eligible to return to duty, you'll have to provide a negative drug and alcohol test result.
This is bull, man. This really sucks.
Would you please review what I've indicated on the form, and if you agree, sign as a witness? Thanks. Now, would you drive Bob over to our collection facility?
In this case, Tony could smell alcohol on Bob's breath. He observed his speech patterns and his fluctuations in mood. From angry one minute to depressed and sullen the next. He took note regarding Bob's confusion about what day of the week it was. He could see that Bob's pupils were dilated and his balance was unsteady. By moving the conversation to a private setting, he was able to protect the rights and privacy of the employee, and it allowed time for a witness to arrive to also observe the indicators for reasonable suspicion testing. Once inside, Tony was able to immediately document the signs and symptoms and refer Bob for testing. He calmly explained the company policy regarding the use of drugs and/or alcohol and ordered a reasonable suspicion test. He also informed Bob of the possible consequences of testing positive. Quite simply, it came down to the fact that Tony objectively observed the smell of alcohol on Bob's breath, giving Tony no choice but to refer Bob for reasonable suspicion testing. Not all cases involve construction workers on the job site. In this scene, the supervisor is well acquainted with the employee. Over the past few weeks, this office worker has been observed engaging in behavior consistent with substance abuse. The supervisor has been documenting this behavior. With all of the elements for reasonable suspicion testing now in place, the next step would be to set up a meeting with the employee. However, now the opportunity has presented itself.
Hey, Jim, you got a minute?
Sure, come in, take a seat. In fact, Nicole and I were just about to come see you.
Oh, yeah? What about?
Let's wait till she gets here.
Okay, the thing is...
Are you nervous?
No, why?
Well, I notice your hand is shaking.
Oh, no, it's just cold in here, you know? Listen, Jim, I need to ask you a favor, okay?
All right.
Listen, I need to cut out early today. My wrist
Hey,
is
Nicole.
killing me. It's really stiff and sore.
Judy just came in here and she wanted to ask us a favor.
Yeah, hey, Nicole. Yeah, I need to cut out early today, all right?
You know, that's kind of what we wanted to talk to you about. It seems lately you want to leave early, you want to come in late, and most of the time it's not a problem, but your work's starting to pile up. And I know you say you're tired a lot, and I agree, you often come in and you look all dragged down, but it's starting to show in your work, right? For example, this last order you placed for the brick, it's wrong again. And this time the distributor won't take it back without charging us a 20% restocking fee.
I must have keyed it in wrong, you know? It's this wrist thing, I'm telling you. I think I have carpal tunnel.
Look, Judy, Nicole and I are both concerned about you, all right? That's why I want to refer you for this reasonable suspicion testing.
Why? There's nothing wrong. What's the matter with you? Come on, Jim, you've known me for years.
And that's how I know you've changed, all right? You're not acting like yourself, all right? Your attitude is different.
And that proves nothing, and you know it. There's nothing wrong, okay? I'm good.
I hope you're right. But for all our sakes, let's just be sure.
Nicole, do I really have to go?
It's always difficult to send someone in for evaluation, especially when they're a longtime friend and coworker. But as a supervisor, you have an obligation to the overall safety and well-being of the employee as well as the company. So let's review. For some time now, Jim has observed and documented certain changes in Judy's work and appearance that he felt was indicators of substance abuse. Most obvious was her appearance. Judy was always impeccably dressed for her position as the manager of procurement. Lately, she has taken less pride in her dress, often wearing wrinkled or even the same clothes for a few days. Her usually well-organized office is now cluttered. Judy has been very secretive at work, and lately she has been using eye drops frequently, always with the excuse that she's allergic to something. And as far as her problem with carpal tunnel, it never seems to bother her while playing cards on her break time. Of course, there could be a logical explanation for her behavior and appearance, but with so many indicators present, it is better to err on the side of caution. Remember, a reasonable suspicion incident occurs when an employee is suspected of drug and or alcohol use by actions, appearance, or conduct, which constitutes a change in the person's appearance and or behavior. Now let's take a look at one of the more common scenarios, the short-term employee. Due to the many crafts involved on a construction site, the workforce can change daily. This presents a greater challenge to the supervisor, who must be keenly aware of the indicators set forth in reasonable suspicion testing. One mistake by a short-term employee can cause devastating long-term consequences to all. A constant vigilance must be maintained in order to ensure safety on the job site.
All right, look, I'm not gonna forget about this, all right? I got you back next paycheck, all right? You're my boy.
Big plans?
Yes, sir, you bet. Man, we got the party stuff going on. I just got cash. That means cold brews, babes, barbecue. This can be a party weekend.
You fellas party a lot.
Yeah, we party a lot. We were out to the clubs last night till 4 in the morning.
Oh, I can tell. You seem to be stumbling. Your eyes are bloodshot. Did you get any sleep?
I got a little sleep. I'll be all right. Hey, my name's Steve.
Where's your hard hat, Steve?
It's around here somewhere.
Well, I suggest you find it and put it on.
Hey, man, why you riding me? I do my job.
Well, then you know that our safety regulations require that a hard hat be worn at all times on the job. Why don't you come with me? I'd like to talk to you for a minute. Steve, this is Terry, the project supervisor. I have to tell you, Steve, I feel very uncomfortable about letting you finish out today.
What are you talking
Now,
about?
let me explain. I observed some things that lead me to believe that you may be under the influence of drugs or alcohol.
Like what?
Well, first, you told me that you partied until 4 in the morning. Since you clocked in at 7, that means you haven't had much sleep. I observed you stumbling. I noticed your eyes are bloodshot, and you seem to be sniffling a lot. These things lead me to believe that you may still have alcohol or a substance in your system. That's why I'm going to refer you for reasonable suspicion testing.
I don't know. I'm not taking the test. You can't make me do anything.
You're absolutely right, Steve. But I also must tell you that if you don't take the test, the consequences will be the same as if you had a positive result. Either way, I can't let you finish out the day. It's in your best interest to take the test and clear this up.
Look, I can't miss a day's pay. I'll take it later. Let me just go back and finish my job.
We can't wait. You must take the test immediately.
Okay, fine. But I'll drive myself.
I can't let you do that either. Company policy clearly states that a company representative must arrange for transportation to and from the testing facility.
All this just because I'm a little tired?
In this scenario, while approaching Steve, Ken was able to observe the employee swaying and stumbling. In talking with the employee, Ken was able to further observe and document additional factors, leading him to justify reasonable suspicion testing, bloodshot eyes, and sniffling. Ken objectively observed behavioral and physical indicators, confirmed and documented his observations with a witness, then brought the conversation into a private setting. At this point, he referred Steve to reasonable suspicion testing and calmly urged him to take the test for his own benefit. Ken followed the guidelines set forth for reasonable suspicion testing. According to the substance abuse policy governing reasonable suspicion testing, employees would be subject to a drug and alcohol test based on reasonable and articulated belief that an employee is using or has recently abused drugs, alcohol, or substances prohibited by the policy. A decision to test would be based on a specific physical, behavioral, or performance indicators and documented by a supervisor who has received training in the detection of possible symptoms of drug and alcohol use and must be witnessed by a second supervisor. In all these cases, the employees tested positive for drugs and or alcohol abuse. You should refer to your company's substance abuse policy to obtain procedures pertaining to the consequences of a positive test result. It is important to note that not all referrals will result in a positive test. In some instances, reactions to prescribed medications may create adverse effects that could mimic some of the indicators of reasonable suspicion. This is why it's so important to protect the rights and privacy of employees. Rumor and conjecture can be just as devastating as a positive test result, so always keep it confidential, not only for reasonable suspicion testing, but for all testing required by the company's substance abuse testing policy. As a supervisor, you have an obligation to the company, yourself, and most importantly, your employees, to keep them safe at all times while on the job site. If an employee has a drug or alcohol abuse problem, then everyone has a problem. By ordering reasonable suspicion testing, when the appropriate signs and symptoms are objectively observed, you will show other employees that you care. In doing so, you will build a more secure company that employees will be proud to work for. You'll instill in them confidence in the management and its commitment to safety, resulting in increased productivity, fewer accidents and injuries, and a higher level of customer service. Remember, your employees are your most valuable assets.